Well, here we are, episode 32, finally happening, and nothing can basically stop us as always. So, we are just so ecstatic to welcome Susanna Cox, AI and machine learning security researcher and engineer. And please introduce yourself to everyone. And like I said, on a need to know basis, what you think it's important for people to know about you.
Thank you. First of all, Elena, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here talking to you today. My name is Susanna Cox. I am a security researcher focused in AI applications. I have a patent for a novel AI security architecture. I serve on the OWASP AI Exchange core author team, which is one of my favorite things ever. And my research focuses include AI for aerospace and trying to bring safety critical engineering standards into the field of AI and AI security in general. I have a long history in security. I started out as a red teamer and then went to data science, and I've worked in just about every role in the offensive security or AI stack, from data scientist to MLE and so forth, all the way up to chief data officer. So that's my background. And then my research currently is focused on helping to harmonize standards and really kind of up the level for AI engineering so that we produce better AI systems for everyone.
That was comprehensive. So we could have made so many LinkedIn lives and episodes out of this one. I counted 20 topics in my head. So quickly, I had to ask, how does one end up being a red teamer? How does it happen?
I can't speak for everybody. In my case, I grew up in a security family, like security. I tell people I'm a 10th generation security or intelligence professional. I'll count those in the same vein because my family has been in intelligence and security work since the Revolutionary War in the United States. So I just
say no more.
I just kind of grew up in it, but it was actually a harder transition to come into data science because I didn't have the PhD or any of that, just the security background. So that was a little bit harder to get into from my perspective.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually. So without a PhD, you just decided it's worth a shot. That's it, you got in, or was it the dedication? What was the impetus for you to go there?
Yeah, so I had been breaking these systems for so long at this point. I thought, I'm looking at this from the offensive security perspective, but I'm not an AI engineer. I don't understand everything that goes into engineering them. And so I really wanted to understand from the other side of, I just like learning how things work. Like I'm an engineer at heart, and it's fun for me. So when I don't understand something, I want to go get my hands on it and try it. I can't, all of the materials that you need to learn to be a data scientist are freely available online. And I actually maintain on my personal site, I have a list of resources for anybody that wants to learn. But I think it does require some dedication, and you have to be personally interested in it. You have to be willing to put in the hours and do the code. I noticed with Gen AI coming out, people are, getting into prompt engineering, and that's I think that's an easier bridge than learning all the mathematics and code involved in traditional data science.
But you still need to put in all the hours, like you said, and that's a lot of hours. So yeah, I mean, that's amazing that you are where you are, because like I said, dedication and hard work pay off. So yeah, I'm not gonna just talk about any other stuff because I have a lot of questions, but still, yeah, it's for a different time. So the first topic that we wanted to talk about, operationalizing AI security, and you wrote a paper on that, and the paper is called "Securing AI/ML Systems in the Age of Information Warfare." You want to talk about that paper?
Yeah. So that was kind of my first I had worked as a machine learning engineer and, head of machine learning, but I really hadn't said anything about AI security because nobody was really talking about that. And I was really starting to realize how bad the problems were at this point in the security landscape. Like, it's easy coming from the offensive security side to think, well, I'm just, one hacker. This can't really be a real problem. But once I fully, I had an education in the environment, if you will, I thought, this is bad. This is really bad. This is a national security issue. And so that paper is kind of my love letter to the government and industry to be like, please fix this. In my research, I found that a lot of people were talking about wanting to do ethical AI and audits. We found, dozens and dozens of audit frameworks that could potentially be applied. But what people were saying in the literature is, we don't know how to apply these things. We think audits are great, but how do we actually do this? And simultaneously, we have this problem in industry where it's very difficult for people to get AI systems into production, because it's not just about coming up with a really fabulous model and like, this is the greatest data science model. There's a whole back end of pipelines that are specific to AI systems. And if you don't get that right, you're not going to be able to have production AI. And so looking at these two problems simultaneously, I was, looking at it like, okay, in order to really secure these systems, you're going to have to operationalize your security. And in order to get them into production, you're going to have to operationalize them. And in order to be ethical, you're going to have to operationalize them. So why don't we kind of put it all in one here? Because to me, ethical AI is secure AI is ethical AI. Those things are intertwined and cannot be separated. So this paper was me kind of trying to be like, okay, here's how you do it. This is a platform agnostic means that you can integrate security into your AI systems and audits and so forth, and hopefully get ready for the wave of regulation that we, all knew was coming in 2022 and that we see coming now for sure.
Yeah. So you think a lot changed since 2022 when the paper came out?
No, nothing has changed from an AI security perspective, except I will say that people are more aware of it now. When I wrote that paper, a lot of folks in the industry were like, calling me so much.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. They were like, AI security, that's not real. It was like kind of a big joke to them. But now I think people are starting to take it seriously. But in terms of actual material gains, we're still seeing many of the same problems that we were in 2022.
Because you were talking about that literally in your paper, right? And I'm going to quote you on that. So the stats say that 80% of AI fails, like AI, I don't know, products, startups, and they fail due to that particular reason, right? Operationalizing, my favorite word, I keep butchering it. Operationalizing.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
And you say it's been 3 years and pretty much people are, dealing with the same problems and kind of no end in sight. And haven't we learned anything? What is happening?
We've learned that generative AI is a shiny, cool new toy that we've all been focused on for a couple of years now. That's what we've learned from my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm kidding a little bit, but I don't know how much active work can possibly be invested in the talent shortages, in the siloing of expertise, and everything that needs to happen to fix the culture. It's very fast and loose ad hoc development in data science. How do you unite that with security culture? These are very big cultural shifts that have to happen within multiple interrelated industries. So it's reasonable to expect that change will take time, I guess.
We need even more time.
We're trying. OWASP AI Exchange is trying. People who are putting out regulations are trying. people are waking up, you know what I mean? Like, and you're out here raising the spreading the word and raising awareness about policy and so forth, which is hugely important. So I have hope. I think things are getting better.
Yeah, but as we already talked about it briefly during our prep call, but isn't it crazy how AI kind of, we're gonna talk about the siloing later on today, but isn't it crazy how people from different areas, different experts, people of various backgrounds, they kind of, it just catalyze it, and everybody is working together on projects, AI engineers, cybersecurity guys, data scientists, whatever you name it, sociologists, attorneys, philosophers. And it's just, to me, that's kind of awesome. And we see a lot of the projects, for example, I don't know, Cohere for AI, they are coming up with great stuff. The scientists, researchers around the globe were working on their language models that comprises hundreds of languages. And it's literally like a worldwide effort at this point, I would say. Even if you see conferences, right? So people from different areas, a lot of experts that used to never meet at the conference ever before, because they used to have like their own separate conferences, they all find themselves in this kind of one cauldron.
Isn't that? Yeah, I didn't mean, sorry to interrupt you. I was just like super into that point. Like, isn't it interesting how AI brings everyone together? I didn't expect that. I didn't see that coming, that it would be this multidisciplinary. And that's really cool. That's probably my favorite part of getting to work with all these different experts in different fields.
Yeah, I know. I mean, here we are talking to each other about it, and if it wasn't for AI, obviously that talk would never have happened. And yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to me. I mean, in a good way, but yeah. So talking about, threats and security and technical specifications, threat modeling. That's kind of one of the areas that people in the space, obviously, they've known about it. But for people not in this bubble, I would say, hopefully they're watching as well or listening. How important is that when it comes to AI systems?
I'm biased, but I think it's everything. I think right now that is the vector for folks to understand their AI systems better. You need AI literacy under the EU AI Act, and I feel like threat modeling is a perfect vector for people to start to understand how AI works, because you can't model threats to AI systems without understanding fundamentally how the AI systems work. Without understanding the importance of data, for example, and how they're trained and how they run on data, how inference is made, you're not going to understand the security threats that these systems face. So by learning about the threats, you're learning about how the AI works. And I think that it's absolutely critical. And since we're seeing that virtually all these systems are vulnerable in some way, anyone who is trying to get AI into production now has at least an ethical obligation, a business obligation for sure, and probably pretty soon in most jurisdictions, a legal obligation to perform threat modeling.
How is that different from your just standard cybersecurity kind of just procedure and rules and stuff? How does it apply to, when it applies to AI? What's so different about AI when everybody's just kind of all of a sudden talking about cybersecurity when they're saying safe and ethical AI use? Well, mainly safe AI use. A lot of people would say like, well, what does it have to do with cybersecurity anyway? So it's just a chatbot. It's just something. It's just some magical thing that makes my wishes come true.
Right. That's what AI ultimately is, right? It's this magic thing. We tell it what we want and it just gives it to us. I think maybe that's the dream. The reality is it doesn't quite work that way. And nothing is for free. So if you're interacting with the chatbot, you're automatically giving it data. And at the same time, because you are providing data and instructions basically in a single channel to your chatbot, it's vulnerable to injections and that sort of thing because you are communicating via the data that it's also analyzing. So we have a vulnerability here that sort of mirrors a traditional cybersecurity vulnerability like SQL injection, but the vector is actually data. So if I had to summarize in one word the difference between AI security and threat modeling versus traditional cybersecurity, it would be data. Understand that data goes from being this highly valuable asset, and we all heard data is the new oil in the early 2010s. Well, now data is the attack vector. And this requires a very fundamental paradigm shift for people who are defending these systems.
So kind of for me, like an average user, right? And you mentioned people obviously need to be aware of all the information, personal information that they are inputting when they're talking to a chatbot. But it's like a lay person, for example, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. What should I be aware of before I even start, logging into OpenAI or just trying some of the free tools that are out there? And there are a lot of them.
Yeah, I hear there's a lot of tools. I personally do not use those. For me, it's just not worth the data exchange. If I were going to use them, I would be extremely careful about providing any personal information. I hear people say they use ChatGPT as like a mind map. Help me plan my day, help me refine my ideas. Like I wouldn't be putting my sensitive IP into I'll tell you a story. I won't say where I was working, but I was working with an organization, and they had some really bleeding edge IP, and someone in the organization went to ChatGPT to write a summary for investors and just basically fed it to ChatGPT and was like, summarize this and make me a pitch deck, which is, kind of a big brain genius idea on the surface. Yeah. What they really did was give OpenAI patent grade information. And, this is the kind of thing that people don't necessarily make a connection of, maybe don't realize how valuable their personal data is. So I would just be aware. Don't put anything in any of those systems that you wouldn't want the entire world to see, because a prompt engineer may be able to get that data out verbatim.
Yeah. I've heard some crazy stories as well.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the things, coming back to AI literacy, right? People are just not fully aware. They're not even fully aware. They're not aware, period, of what are the implications, precisely because they don't know how this technology works, even on just the surface level. They have no clue. They pretty much think it's just something very private that is just between me and my computer and my chatbot. I'm just gonna talk to it, get all the information that I needed, save myself a few hours of work, and I'm gonna be just on my own merry way. But at the end of the day, those large language models in general, they learn on that data, and they learn on all the chats from all the users of that particular chatbot, if we're talking about ChatGPT or any one of those things. And in accumulation, your chat is just one of the billions chats that's going to be fed into Notion. Yeah, obviously there are some settings that you can just turn off some magical buttons, and supposedly it's not trained on your information. But still, I mean, how safe can you be, even if you opt out of everything?
Yeah, thank you. I don't trust the toggles, which is like, oh,
but it makes you feel better, right? It's just, you kind of like, my computer is secured now. I turned everything on. The switch is off.
Right. Obviously, right. The button's in the off position now, so no data. There's a wall.
Yes, precisely. I can do whatever I want. Input any information I want. Yeah, but that's just that's the scary part, right? That people are they are not aware, and I wouldn't say they really want to be aware, because usually it's the same. I think the reasoning is the same behind the same fact that white people, obviously, nobody reads terms and conditions, right? Privacy policy, blah blah blah. You're just clicking whatever button pops up to get to the content quicker and to get your whatever you were about to do on that website quicker. So obviously nobody's gonna bother themselves with this. And yeah, it's just interesting how those things work. Nobody's taking that into account. So something to put in perspective.
Like, how are you going to tell people, like, okay, this is what an API call is, and then your data is transmitted, hopefully encrypted. But coming from a security background, I can think of a lot of different cybersecurity ways that this system could go wrong and expose your entire chat log. So you're trusting not only in the AI security, the model security here, but you're also trusting in just the basic cybersecurity practices. Anytime you're interacting with the system, but this is all so new. It's scary for me coming from security, but I completely understand why to a normal person that isn't in this field 24 hours a day, they're just talking to something from their perspective.
Yeah, precisely. And what would you say to a company? Because a lot of companies obviously are using APIs and they're working with those models, and supposedly that's safe and secure. Supposedly that's what they're marketing anyway. So your information, we're not getting your information. Your information stays with you. When it comes to that, what would your take on that be when we're talking about a company who is just, trying to get a feel of how this tech works, and they're like, okay, so we're gonna start with an API. We'll see how it goes. Is their information secure at the end of the day? There's no guarantee, obviously, but is it more secure, I would say, versus just a free plan with any of the tools?
Well, here's the thing. Anytime a lot of companies are understandably racing to try to integrate AI into their business, because the hype machine and everything that everyone's being told, which to be fair follows the traditional technology path, is that if you don't adopt this early, you're going to be left behind. So I understand, why businesses are doing this. They have business interest in doing so. They have shareholders to answer to and so forth. Cybersecurity leaks don't necessarily get as big news. So that may not necessarily be front of mind. And anybody that works as a blue teamer will tell you all kinds of war stories about how they were not listened to and then something happens. But that being said, any business decision is going to come down to a model of risk versus ROI. So at the end of the day, if you are an organization that has an ability to integrate AI into your stack, or you see a use case for it, most of these people are going to make the decision that, yeah, I'm going to pay. I'm going to assume that whoever I'm paying assumes that risk for me. And then I've done my due diligence and I can integrate AI into this system. And so there's certainly a rationale behind it, and it makes sense from a business perspective to do it that way. Of course, you're trusting whoever you're paying and hoping that you're going to get what you pay for. And that's kind of what we're all waiting to see right now, is how serious
ROI.
Yeah, like first of all, ROI, but how seriously are all of these providers going to be taking cybersecurity and AI security as a whole? We've yet to see.
Because, like we already mentioned, the risks are many, and a lot of those risks we have no idea how they might look like in the future. Because when this technology is available and in the hands of billions of people, everybody can, make their own choices and create their own risks. And there's no really one way to. We don't have a magic ball to kind of predict particular risks that might come up. So yeah, that's the scary part.
That's why we threat model, though. Like that's kind of the back.
Predict the unpredictable. Fix it.
Well, we can kind of know what we don't know. When we sit down and do a model of our system, and we model how all of our data flows are pipelined, when we understand and we can sit here and say, okay, these are the risks that we can number one know about and that we can quantify. Wow, you've really cut your own unknowns down tremendously. And so this is why we recommend threat modeling throughout the development lifecycle for any software, but especially AI, because you get a better grasp on what you don't know. And at that point, the risk becomes considerably more manageable because it's not just blindsiding you. So if you continuously threat model, these things are not going to sneak up on you in the way that they will organizations that skip that step.
Yeah, no, precisely. I mean, a lot of people are not aware also that even depending on where the model is like at its life cycle right now, at the moment, the risks might be different and the liability might be different. And, just kind of everything, the decision tree kind of grows from there. Everything, the things will change in a second. So, yeah. People forget that important thing. It's like the whole life cycle, the whole life cycle. Take a wholesome approach and see the big picture. I don't know how else to describe it.
Spread the word, preach. Thank you.
Yeah, we should work on some t-shirts, this whole life cycle something. I'm thinking of some merch right now. But yeah, I digress as always.
That's a good idea. We need AI security merch. Yeah, have you threat modeled your AI system today?
Lately, yeah. I mean,
ever?
I'm thinking of like a business model at the moment. But anyway, so the AI Act, and let's talk about your work for the technical advisory for the EU AI Act. A lot of people already know about it, and the first February 2nd, kind of the first part of the law kicked in, prohibited practices and banned AI systems and stuff like that. AI literacy is officially in place. So if you don't have your AI literacy programs in order, please consult with your best attorney or expert in this case. That will be someone you can trust. So yeah. Anyway, your work on that, please tell me about it, because that was kind of basically just one of the reasons I contacted you in the first place, because your work on that is really amazing, and I read the paper that we were talking about in your LinkedIn post, so that was kind of the basis for us getting along on this on this road, because that was the reason I reached out to you. It was very fascinating.
So yeah, thank you. That's one of my favorite things that I've gotten to participate in ever in my career. This has definitely been a highlight. The OWASP AI Exchange, for those who don't know, is a consortium of experts from around the globe in AI security. And we've put together a huge volume of material. I can't remember how many pages now, but it's absolutely tremendous. It is organized by life cycle phase, just like you mentioned, because the risks and the threats change depending on the development phase of the AI system. And it's basically made to be the go-to for anyone who's a data professional, cybersecurity professional, or even in policy, to go look and really get a grasp on understanding the threats to the systems, the controls, when and how they are applied. It's super exciting and a really fun initiative to be a part of. So from that, we have this core team of authors, which I'm honored to be a part of. And this group of people has been working to provide technical advisory for requirements for the EU AI Act. So the founder of the AI Exchange, Rob van der Veer, is also a co-editor of the AI Act. So from this group, we've been going back and forth and submitting technical advisory to the working groups who are actually editing it, and I think it's being presented for comments. I don't want to say too much because a lot of this is confidential, and we're not really allowed to talk about it until it comes into force. But it's been a lot of fun, and we ended up submitting dozens of pages of technical advisory. The process was kind of grueling, just to be honest, because it's a lot. But you have requirements in the AI Act that are like, okay, you've got to test your system to make sure it's resilient to a particular attack. Okay, cool story. Thank you. But as I'm sitting here as a practitioner or a chief data officer, what test? How do I know when it's good enough? How do I document it? And how do I show that to regulators and prove that I've done it? And from the regulator side, you've got, okay, the same problem. How do I know that they've done it? How do I know that it's sufficient? How am I going to check this for however many organizations are operating in this space under these requirements? And so we have an intersecting problem of, mathematics, of operationalization, of bureaucracy, if you will, and all of this at scale, because there are so many AI organizations. And it has to be future-proof. So it can't be too brittle or else it breaks in the next state-of-the-art cycle. So, wow, what a challenge. And it took a whole team of people. One of the most fun things I've ever worked on. Sorry, I'll shut up, but I could go on about this all day long.
No, you don't shut up. I mean, that's literally the most exciting thing. I mean, even if we're talking about the AI, right?
Uh-oh.
Something like that. So,
can you? Okay.
Yes, I think I was just talking to myself for the past.
I think it kicked me out into the back room for a second. I missed what you said. Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just blabbering about the AI Act and the trilogues and how everybody was like, at least in my AI bubble, everybody was following it like this world championships. Something very, very exciting was happening. We were on the cusp of something great. So yeah, I totally share your feelings and excitement. But how did you even? What did it start with? So just somebody contacted you and you're like, Susanna, we want you on our team and let's do it. The AI Act is so important. The technical specifications, we need you. So how did it all start?
Yeah, the government came and knocked on my door and they were like, the world wants you. Yeah, exactly. They sent a helicopter. It was really elite. No, so this is the core author team for the AI exchange. And it just ended up being people who were pretty elite experts. Like I'm super honored to be on the same team as these people. I think I was initially added in because of my paper from 2022, which ended up being the first ever MLSecOps architecture that was published, and somewhat, I guess, groundbreaking in the field, which I feel very weird saying about my own paper, but it ended up being the first. And so that's how I got added in there. So I'm in there with this just absolutely elite team. I will shout out, there's a CISO named Sandy Dunn, who I think recommended me. And then Rob graciously put me in. And then it was just all a team of volunteers, of people who were like, I want to work on this. I know it's going to be hard work, but here's my area of expertise. And then we all kind of divvied it up into what we could contribute. So we have, people who are CISOs who are looking at it from that perspective, like, okay, how do I do this? Is this clear? Is it reasonable? Can I do it? We had adversarial ML people and AI security folks, and that's my area, or my two areas, who were coming up with mathematical requirements. So one of my favorite things that we got to do was we were going to be looking at the feasibility of whether you could establish full coverage resilience testing against evasion attacks. And so I got to go through a ton of papers and work out the mathematics of that and see, exactly how possible that may or may not be. And then once we had that, we started working on developing, what type of tests and how do we know when they're sufficient and so forth. And I will say, I don't want to spoil it, but we've got some pretty bleeding edge research that ended up being a little bit too much for the AI Act requirements, but I think will advance the state of the art, which we'll be publishing here soon as well. So a lot came out of that. But it was just all these different people contributing, whatever their area of expertise was, and iron sharpens iron. It was a lot of fun, and I think we all got better at our craft, or at least I did.
Yeah. So that's what we were talking about, right, earlier. So a lot of people, this collaborative effort, and you literally feel it in the air. You're surrounded by at people so smart and so talented, and you have nowhere to go except for just up, and you realize that you're becoming smarter and hopefully more talented. you know
Yeah.
that's how at least that's what I hope it does to me. That's why I'm only surrounding myself with very smart and very talented people.
I'm the same way. I do not want to be the smartest person in the room.
No,
I'm in
no.
if I'm the smartest person in the room, that's the wrong room. I need to find a different room.
Absolutely. You don't. It doesn't feel the same way. So you said that you were literally, doing like the bleeding edge of the research, and it was too much for the AI Act. You said as well. So you were like too technical and too specific. Well, what happened there? You like
Okay,
don't feel any information, but yeah, that's interesting.
okay, so I'm sorry, this is like one of the funnest things. So just like tell me to shut up if I'm going off too much on it. But we're actually going to be putting a paper out. I think we're working on that right now. Well, we're definitely putting a paper out. We'll see where we submit. But so this was specifically for testing requirements because I was able to figure out probably it's NP complete. You're not going to be able to get full coverage for this particular type of attack. So then we have to figure out, the leader, Rob, came back and said, well, be that as it may, we have a responsibility to figure out how to do this. So I was very fortunate to get early access to some papers before they were published by another member of the team and I know these papers just got accepted to conference now, so that's very exciting for them. But I got to read the papers before they were published, and that gave me some clues about kind of a new mathematical framework that could be used for testing. And so we kind of went back and forth and workshopped it. And we've come up with a system for how we can quantify the likelihood of some of these attacks and the transferability. And so it's very exciting, but it was a little bit too math heavy and a little bit too much, I think, to require everyone to do as part of requirements. So this was one of those things that's like, okay, this is we need to publish this somehow and share this with people because it's on the bleeding edge, but we can't necessarily make everybody that operates in the European Union do this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be understandable and first and foremost to the people who will be complying with the AI Act, right? Or, at least it has to be legible and people need to pretty much understand what you guys are talking about.
Well, people need time too. I mean, we're still, that paper in 2022 is like 3 years old now, just about. And we're still having trouble getting systems into production. Like that actually hasn't really improved according to the industry statistics that I'm aware of. So, coming out and being like, guess what, you guys, we've figured out new stuff about adversarial subspace and the dimensions, like large dimensional, like high dimensional spaces and security backdoors and all, wow. People just slow down a little bit. Like we're still trying to figure out how we can get this thing to provide reliable inference in production. Yeah. So I get it. You can only push so much. And that's the challenge is like, what is reasonable and actionable in industry that will also secure people, that will also carry us into the future.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with still the work that you guys were doing and still are doing. It's tremendously important. You just mentioned backdoor attacks. So I recently I started to encounter the term a lot, especially lately, and kind of it's just been popping up everywhere. Just in two words for people who are not really much into, AI security and AI systems in general. So what's a backdoor attack when it comes to an AI system?
Well, let me be a little bit more precise. In this particular one, I'm referring to evasion attacks. This is what we were studying. So I want to let me be precise in my language because there's backdoor poisoning and so forth. And then there's cybersecurity backdoor. I don't want to confuse things. So in an evasion attack, I think One of the most famous ones is where people are able to cause a model to make the wrong inference, basically. And that's pretty much the goal a lot of times, other than stealing data or stealing a model and that sort of thing. In many of these attacks, you're trying to get a model to make the wrong inference. So there are several ways to do that. You can poison data in advance. You can have an indiscriminate way of messing with someone's data that's going to cause the model to make just wrong inference in general. You can have it make a specific wrong inference, or just basically break it. And that, again, is separate from stealing the model and stealing information out of it. So one of the most famous attacks that people are aware of is, and I don't know how many people know about this, the idea of like a self-driving car. It uses these machine learning models that view the world around it and rely on computer vision techniques to understand what's going on. It's been found that you can distort the data by adding something as simple as a sticker, a little tiny distortion in a few pixels, a file. We're able to calculate these things as adversarial ML engineers, and you can cause something to make wrong inference. So the most famous example of this that I can think of is where someone puts a sticker on a stop sign, and that self-driving car doesn't recognize it as a stop sign. It is now being classified as something else because that sticker had the exact perturbation, it's called, to be able, which is a hard word for me to say, but basically you mess with the data just a little bit, and all it takes is a few pixels off to fool the model. Because keep in mind, it's not looking with eyes. This thing is using sensors, LiDAR, and some form of computer vision technology that's adapted to be able to understand what these pixels mean, but they're mathematical vectors. It's not like looking at a picture. So if you can change the vectors, if you can change the math a little bit, you can fool it. Obviously, this is dangerous because if you have self-driving cars that are not recognizing stop signs, it's a bad problem. But what really goes unaddressed so much, I think, in AI systems, and that's really brought to the fore in this example, is that the attacker has access to the data. In this case, this is inference time data, but in other types of attacks, it's training time data. If your data is literally coming from the real world in some way, if it's coming from your users or they're generating it, you automatically have a data vulnerability. And there's really no way to mitigate this other than some of the mathematical means that we've been working on for people. You've got to operationalize your security. So these are the types of concerns that we're looking at when we're looking at data attacks in general, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, no, it makes perfect sense. But again, as you said, it's not like the system is looking with its eyes, right? It's pixels and vectors and sensors. And again, people tend to forget that, and they tend to be okay. So, what does it matter if I change one little thing? If I use the data from like 10 years ago versus right now, and I expect the same result, And again, going back to AI literacy, a lot of gaps, there. So yeah, and again, it's very important to talk about those things. Just obviously for you, it's like you said, yeah, it's nonsensical. I mean, I understand everybody knows this is not true, right? But turns out only a few people know it's not true versus just a lot of people who are using this technology. At the end of the day, they just take it at face value. It's just like, okay, so this is my AI girlfriend and I love her. We'll be happy together forever, kind of thing,
Oh, those are the ones that upset me really, because there's young people that are, oh my gosh, yeah, those are the ones that get to me because they're children. You don't even have like a fully formed brain. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being literal in terms of biology and psychology. And the thing about the AI chatbots is they're not real people, which sounds like a stupid thing to say, but a real person provides friction in an interaction. Like a real person isn't always going to agree with everything you say. They're not always going to want to talk about everything you want to talk about. Like there's give and take when you're dealing with people. But you have, and I'm not a psychologist. I'm a mother, but I'm not a psychologist. But it just concerns me that these young people in a very like formative time of their life are learning a relationship that doesn't mirror reality and doesn't adequately prepare them to deal with human relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are obviously the most vulnerable in this situation, but a lot of adults as well. But it's also interesting that a lot of people who engage with AI, significant others, let's put it this way, they are fully aware it's AI, and they're like, "Yeah, I know it, and I don't care," basically, right? So I have my husband or I have my wife, but I have my boyfriend as well, and kind of things are working out for everyone. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm not judging.
I'm not gonna judge, to each their own, whatever works for you. Yeah.
I mean, just it's interesting how everything is evolving, and like you said, I'm not a psychologist or sociologist or any of those things, right? But at some point, those questions you need to discuss them, and you need to talk about them, even like in your line of work, and that brings us to our third talk point: de-siloing, and why it's so important in the space, because we already touched briefly on that, right? Everybody working together. People need to get out of their bubbles and just share knowledge, share information, work together on the research, just feedback on each other's work, and critical thinking. Again, people view things differently depending on where they come from, where their background. Someone with a legal background might see different risks of an AI system from a legal perspective, right? Versus just a machine learning engineer, data scientist who's going to be looking at the same system and see it as the perfect system and the perfect creation, and not see any flaws in that. So can you please elaborate a little on that?
So I tell this story a lot, but at one of my jobs, I was working at a health tech startup, which was focused on doing inference to provide pregnant women information about their pregnancy based on biofeedback collected through, like, say, for example, an Apple Watch. So in order to prove that we could predict pregnancy outcomes, I had this very large data set. It was super challenging to work with, but I was able to get an algorithm that could predict pregnancy outcomes. Eventually, my data scientist I had it at over 80 or something, and I gave it to my data scientist who got it up over 90. So at 90 something percent, give or take, we could tell someone what the large outcome of their pregnancy would be: pregnancy, stillbirth, so forth. And you think, wow, what an amazing breakthrough. You should serve that immediately. No. And here's the reason why. On the data set that I had, it was about 7.5 million rows, 7.5 million people, basically. If I were to serve the wrong information to 10% of them, which is 90% accuracy, it's 750,000 expectant mothers getting a wrong outcome for their pregnancy. That's mass social chaos. Like, that could be actually societally devastating. So we can't just deploy something because it's a cool algorithm. There are more issues at stake. And I noticed the culture, because I've kind of stood in both of these fields. The culture in cybersecurity is very different from the culture in data science. And if the CISO is watching this and wants to talk to me about it, I'd love to pick your brain. But I try to ask CISOs about this a lot. Like, what do you think the problem is with the siloing? And it's because these are such different cultures. Like, security people think in a totally different mindset for managing risks and that sort of thing, versus data scientists who are incentivized to ship models quickly and just get a really good model and get it out there so that we can get it into production and make a cool product. And so the de-siloing is so critical, because somewhere along the line, security people have to think a little less deterministically in order to understand AI development. And AI developers need to apply that probabilistic thought process, if you will, to risk management a little better, in my opinion. That's not.
They need to learn from each other. Not a bad thing.
Right. Thank you. So that's kind of what inspired me to be a Purple Teamer, because it's about bringing these groups together, hopefully, and how can we complement each other and build secure AI for everything. From my perspective, it starts with threat modeling, because when we threat model, we're teaching the security people how AI systems work, and we're teaching the AI people how to think securely. But that's one approach, and many people are tackling this problem, at least I hope.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting how we get to see in real time, right? Because you mentioned your work, and you see how those different expert groups, trying to how they work together, and what happens when it doesn't really kind of work out, or what helps, what doesn't help when they work together. And I agree when you said everybody's rushing to ship, the next AI product. Let's do it. We'll think about it later. Let's just try whatever, let's just slap everything on that wall. Whatever sticks. And unfortunately, that involves a lot of companies and organizations that, I don't know, for example, in the medical field, right? Literally, people's lives depend on that, and still people are willing to roll the dice, I would say, and roll out this algorithm, or work with a third party who's sold that algorithm to them, claiming that it's safe and secure, our favorite words. And they're like, oh, it's safe and secure. Yeah, let's do this. And at the end of the day, it's neither safe nor secure. And people are regular people. They are left to deal with the consequences. And yeah, it's just, how do you bridge that gap? How do you make it stick in their brains that there's absolutely no rush to roll any of that stuff out just because you can?
Yeah, that's the hard question, isn't it? I think
we only ask the hard questions here.
Right. Well, I'm glad we can tackle it. We'll solve it. We've got 7 minutes left.
Absolutely. Come send out the helicopters. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it. But yeah, I think that for regular people, for people who haven't been cursed to think about AI security 24 hours a day now, I would say to, number one, from the perspective of the security engineer, anytime someone tells you something is safe and secure, that should immediately raise red flags for you. It's probably not. Yeah. They can say that here are the measures we've taken to make it safer. Here are the measures we've taken to make it more secure. But if they're promising safety and security, I think that's not something that anyone can promise us in life or in cybersecurity in general. We can fix all of AI's problems, but these systems are still going to require us to rely on structures of the internet like DNS, which are inherently flawed. At the end of the day, we still have the same cybersecurity problems. We still have the same user issues and so forth. Like, people can unintentionally prompt engineer things. It doesn't even have to be malicious. That's just called dealing with your user.
Do you have any examples of that? That's very interesting. So just random people, I don't know, typing in some gibberish to them, but it turns out to be something very, very sophisticated that, there's a chain reaction.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, actually I don't. But in my experience, it doesn't take anything very sophisticated. Sometimes these models just accidentally spit out private information. And there's been many cases of that where someone has accidentally just gotten a hold of someone else's source code or other IP that they weren't even intending to, because the models memorize and then return that data. So yeah, be careful. If they say it's safe and secure, maybe it's not, and maybe don't tell anything to an outside system that you wouldn't necessarily want the whole world to see. But this is the advice everyone's had about email and social media and so forth.
Yeah. I was
20
gonna
years.
say, but that kind of works for just everything in your life, right? If you're about to, I don't know, you meet the stranger on the street with his white van, and he's like, "Come on in, it's safe and secure." You kind of might think twice, before you jump in. So yeah, I tend to agree. We have 5 minutes. DeepSeek, your take on that, and all the commotion that was happening a few weeks back. The US stocks dropped. People were talking about even CNN and the BBC and like your usual suspects that would never ever even talk about AI like ever again. Everybody was talking about DeepSeek for that one week. People were reaching out to me like, did you hear about people who literally have no idea what AI is or the technology is?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm real deep in AI. So I of course heard about DeepSeek. I didn't know it was spreading like that outside. I think it's super cool. I think it's absolutely hilarious. They came in and stole everyone's lunch. I think it's very funny that everyone is now calling guardrails censorship because it's from China. So people in the Europe and the US are like, oh, this one's censored. Hey guys, what did you think OpenAI was doing when it put guardrails on their model? That is censorship. Maybe it aligns more closely with your particular cultural beliefs, but no one is out here.
Bad guardrails. Those are bad. Ours are good. So
right. Thank you. Yeah, their guardrails are bad. Our guardrails are awesome. Yeah, no, all of these are censored because these models are trained on the raw internet. And if they served it to you uncensored, it would say horrible things and not be a very nice interaction. So everyone has guardrails on the models. But it's fascinating to me that people got big mad about the Chinese ones and all of a sudden maybe woke up a little bit to that's what's going on. So,
yeah, and it was open source too. So, double whammy for everyone. People were kind of just scrambling to make their case why you should not be dealing with that. But I mean, looking at the core of the problem, a lot of security implications. Obviously, people were started to just pick, and break apart the security side of it. Privacy implications, huge privacy implications for organizations or people who want to use that or who already use that. So be very careful. Don't use it. Just in case. But yeah, and about the guardrails, I mean, as with every, I would say, as with every language model that comes from China, obviously there will be some censorship, and some is an understatement. Obviously, they're gonna censor the hell out of this thing because China. Even going back like a few years, the first model that came in, I think it was Ernie. Yeah, the first chatbot, like the China's response to ChatGPT, and Ernie bot. It was the same thing. If you ask it about any of the Chinese government, anything's going on there, or Tiananmen Square massacre or stuff like that, it would flat out refuse to talk to you or shut down your account. Like literally, you couldn't even get access to the model. So yeah, those things are pretty much happening today. And the DeepSeek model, I read that it was so funny. So if you ask it in Korean about certain Korean traditions and like inherently Korean traditions and dishes, it would respond that yes, it's from Korea, it's coming from Korea, it's an original Korean tradition of dish or holiday or whatever that may be. But if you prompt that same model in Chinese about that same dish or holiday, the response would be, of course, it's in China. It originated in China, of course. So again,
I love it. I think the U.S. states should do what they're doing with regulation, but they should release their own DeepSeek. So, like, I'm from Georgia. I think if you ask I think Georgia should have an AI model, and it should only say good things about Georgia. Like, it would be like Beaches are good. The weather's great. Don't know it's not hot here. Don't let them lie to you. Like I just
Yeah,
think
just making you proud every time you talk to it. You feel better about your state, you know, it's just fine.
right, right. I think that's a use case we can all get behind.
See how many? Like we already got one use case as in the business model with the t-shirts.
We need the VCs on this. We're on fire here today.
Yeah, we accept donations in the comments, please. Just yeah, I'm totally joking right now. Anyway, Susanna, thank you so much for just making it happen. We had a few bumps on the road, and my co-host Elisa, she couldn't join us today again, and it's her birthday actually, so
Oh, happy birthday,
birthday,
Elisa.
yeah, to her, and hopefully she's going to be able to join us next time, which is, hold on one second, yeah, February 27th, our next live. And in the meantime, yeah, I'm going to just say once again, it was a pleasure and it was a lot of fun. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Elena. It's been great. I loved it. Thank you. Take care.